feel I have 3 strikes against me into the world that's about to be here in the United States. I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm a lesbian.
And I couldn't believe that all of a sudden it felt like we had gone so far backward after so many years of feeling that we had gone forward.
Doing good as an American doesn't mean you do it by fucking over everyone else in this country.
I fear all rights that have been obtained up to this point, for the queer community are just going to disappear.
It was such a scary moment for me. I actually went and crawled into bed with my mother.
When she came crawling into bed with us at about 3 or 4 in the morning, I was even more scared for her.
I am still just finding my identity and being in a spot where you're kind of finally coming into, I'm queer and this is my life, and knowing that the world is going to change in a threatening way was really upsetting.
I was in shock. I cried all day that day for no reason. I showered and got up and did my normal routine and went to work. But the feeling was so deep that any little thing almost would set me to tears.
I think I was a little naive in thinking that most people would not vote for somebody like Donald Trump.
The night of the election, when I heard that Donald Trump won, I felt like I felt when a member of my family died. And now, almost 100 days in, I realize that I've been going through the grieving process, all of the steps of grief.
Never before in my life have I felt the need to be armed when I go out in public, but I do now.
We're not going to let that fear drive us back into hiding.
In Indiana, there has been significant vandalism specifically targeted towards the LGBT community.
Would I rather her not have to carry a weapon? Sure. I would rather not have to carry one.
Before last November, I absolutely would have gone anywhere in full show drag, completely full show painted, big hair. Sometimes I would even just have my tights and costume on, and I would go to Walmart. If I had to get something, I wouldn't even worry about what people had to think about me. Now I find myself more and more having that feeling like maybe I should just take my lashes and makeup off. Maybe I should take my hair down a little. I find myself trying to dull who I am as a person so that I can blend in more and so that I'm not a target.
But to put in someone who is so unqualified and so hateful about everything.
I think giving Donald Trump a chance is dangerous. And I'm not normally an alarmist. I'm not normally a conspiracy theorist. I used to bristle when people would call either side of the parties Nazis. I didn't like that kind of language. I thought it was over the top and not realistic. But in this case, I think if we don't anticipate and be prepared for everything that's coming, we will not be able to stop it. So I'm not willing to sit back and give him a chance. And basically, from November 9th on, it's proven to me the correct way to go, because each cabinet appointment feels more and more like this has to be a joke. And I think there's a large part of myself and a lot of people in my life that are still in denial that this is actually happening, because it just seems so extreme.
And then I'll be honest, there was a brief moment when he first started running and I thought about it. I was raised in a very Republican family. There's a lot of things with Republican that I agree with and believe in. I've always thought that having a businessman run the country instead of a politician could be an amazing thing for our country. However, this businessman is listening to the wrong board of trustees.
With the LGBT community, I am fearing that Mike Pence might, in fact, bring about conversion therapy again in the nation.
We have a friend who their daughter is 12 years old and she went to school the day after the election, and these boys came up to her and said, "Oh, now your moms are going to know what conversion therapy is like." I mean, who teaches their kids that? Who teaches their kids that conversion therapy is even a thing, for goodness sake?
I don't want to believe that conversion therapy is coming back, but I do believe it's a possibility, and it's a very real threat to the way of life. And it's hard to say the way of life because, you know, we're literally just getting up in the morning, hoping that we can get through the next day and be successful.
You cannot convert the person from their sexuality, and that's not normal development for people who are same-gender attracted. So it's a mistaken notion, and it's actually what people do is they torture and blackmail people to make them express their behaviors differently. Doesn't change anything about their sexuality.
Our family has just about every aspect of diversity that you could imagine. My wife is transgender. Our oldest son is gay, and he's dating a black man. And our younger son is engaged to a Mexican woman. So pick your target. It's one of our family.
It's hard. You know, like my mom doesn't get it. And if somebody that close to you can't get it, who's going to say that anybody else is going to get that? So I lost a lot going into this. And I don't want to lose any more. You know, I don't want to lose my children. I don't want my children to be scared every single day because they're scared.
After the election, I also felt compelled to finally come out to my family. It's a little bit of leading by example. Because my family is so conservative and because I've heard the conversations that have happened within the family regarding the LGBTQ community, especially when the Supreme Court decision was happening a couple years ago for gay marriage. Leaving my house crying, but hiding it because we don't talk about tears, we don't talk about fears like that. Listening to my aunt go off on a tangent about how allowing gay marriage will eventually lead to rights for bestiality. I needed to come out. I needed to risk losing my family and losing the rights to my history and my heritage in order to stand for what I believe in and for my community.
When I was in McDonald's a couple of weeks ago and people started talking about the Women's March in January, and I said I was on that march, and a woman there turned to me and said, "What rights don't you have as a woman?" And I could not find the answer, because when I am attacked, I can't think, which is why I didn't stand up for what I knew when Trump was running for election. So I realized I needed to be able to talk about it where I was not being actively attacked. Because as a woman, I am much more safe, and as a lesbian, than most other lesbians. I have a profession. I'm protected in it because people need me. I am married. I am close to retirement. I have money saved, and I have insurance. And I have supportive biological family. Those things are missing for so many women and so many LGBT people. And if we don't continue to find ways to provide that security, people turn into themselves with fear, just like I did in my safe position when that woman said that. And the fear makes us feel like there aren't any options.
The fear is that we can have our civil rights taken away because we have seen it happen to all sorts of people in this country. I think a lot of conservatives claim that at least we have our Bill of Rights and that those freedoms can never be taken away. But we see very easily in so many different examples that a lot of people are not considered true Americans, that they are not to be protected. So I see mostly panic and despair from communities of color when things like that happen in Ann Arbor or in Detroit.
I felt utter fear over what would come. And the fear is based on the rhetoric and the actual words of the then President-elect Trump over the months that led up to the election.
Like every day I wake up and think, is this really happening? And I found a lot of my friends are feeling that way too. We see each other on the street and we're like, how are you? I'm okay, how are you? And it's this like somber mood, and we're all just trying to make sure that we're taking care of each other. But it's been really difficult, more difficult than I expected. It's been almost worse the longer it's gone on.
I believe in the American people, and I believe it's really the people. And then I started hearing things on the news about people that were being treated poorly because of minority status, which real frankly surprised me that America would turn that quickly.
For example, with Betsy DeVos's rhetoric and her language of avoiding being specific about how she will protect people, which therefore implies that that is not her priority, to protect people. So I think that a lot of these rollbacks, they may not be seen as direct antagonizing attacks on certain people, but more so rolling back things that are necessary for justice, such as protection for people. I'm a big believer in justice, which wouldn't just mean leveling the playing field. I think that certain people that are most vulnerable need to be propped up, and I think a lot of people don't understand that we do need to empower some people or prop some people up. So I think that is what the rollbacks will look like, is using the basis or the goal of equality or an evil playing field, a fair playing field, when we know that that would actually harm some people, a lot of people.
I'm afraid because there are too many people that have died already this year because they're transgender. They're just senseless. It's pointless. And all they want to do is go to the bathroom. It shouldn't be a privilege to pee.
My biggest concerns are the open hate that people feel that they're able to express and that they have permission to express. So when laws pass, for example, that somehow regulate bathroom use as though people walk around with a birth certificate saying what gender they are, it's clearly meant to frighten people and to say, we're out for you, we're watching for you, we're going to feel free to attack you.
We felt comfortable walking hand in hand and not thinking that that would be a problem. We felt comfortable letting our daughters say that they have two mothers and that that's not a problem. And now I think, well, if we're walking hand in hand, is someone going to yell at us or bully us?
When I'm walking down the street, if I'm not walking hand in hand with another guy, like, people just see me as a straight white male. And I'm generally ignored.
I probably won't walk the streets alone anytime soon, if ever again.
Immediately following the election, I experienced violence personally, but whether it was because of my identity or my race, it wasn't clear. But I think that, the person who assaulted me actually, kind of like felt powerful in that, they had this administration backing them up, that they could act in, such a way that was going to hurt someone else and it would be fine.
People somehow feel like it's okay now to be very loud and bold and vocal about how they feel about people that are in the LGBT community. And it makes you want to take a step back. It makes you want to not just live your life because you feel threatened.
I'm scared that the more I put myself out there, the more that I make Joshua a thing, the more that I decide to go to the gas station as Joshua because it's more convenient than getting ready at the club, that I'm making people more aware of other aspects of the LGBT community. I'm scared that I'm going to make it harder for them, make it harder for myself, make people feel that they need to go find these clubs, these places that they're at, and make them let us know how they really feel. Because it's Trump's America now, people have said, which means that we can do what we want. We don't have to be politically correct anymore. Why does it have to be politically correct, though? Why can't it just be nice?
Why does it matter who we love when the people who are telling us that we're wrong are the people who worship a God that is love? So if God is love, and Jesus says, just to love your neighbor as I loved you, why does it matter that I love somebody who looks a little different or acts a little different than you? And if it is a sin and you believe it's a sin, then didn't Jesus also say, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone? Then why are you casting stones at people and hurting people when you have been told by your God you don't have the right?
I, as a Christian pastor, am in disbelief at people who can profess to be Christian and support the behaviors and the policies of Donald Trump. Because the way of Donald Trump is the complete antithesis of the way of Jesus. Jesus told us to welcome the stranger. Jesus told us to care for the poor and the sick. If you think that Jesus would be about building walls and banning people because of their religion, if you think Jesus would be about denying sick people health care and voting for policies that would lift up the rich at the expense of the poor, then you don't know Jesus.
I am part of the healthcare industry that they're trying to screw up. And so I got healthcare because I had no other option to get healthcare through the Affordable Care Act. I physically take advantage of that so that I can go to my doctor's visits, so that I can deal with my own complex treatments for my own body. And if that stuff is removed and, say, pre-existing conditions come back, then I run the risk of not being able to afford healthcare any longer. And for individuals who have chronic conditions, that's life and death. For me, it's life and death. For some of my clients, it's life and death.
And there's very few people in this country that can afford, that are HIV positive, that can afford their medicine.
As far as Trump Care goes or Affordable Care Act, et cetera, it's perfect timing because right now I need about $700 cash to do labs that I'm not going to do because my insurance doesn't cover it. So already my health care is compromised, right? I may have a condition that I don't know about, that I can't afford to know about.
Essentially, people want to be accepted for whom they see themselves as. They want to be seen the way they wish to be seen and as they experience themselves. I think that people can understand that if everybody mistook you for somebody other than you thought you were, you'd be very disturbed.
Having the right gender marker on your license, either an M or an F, depending on how you identify. And I think one personal fear of mine is just that I'll have somebody look at my ID for something and they'll see M when I'm presenting as F.
Gender creates such anxiety in people. There's a tremendous amount of regulation in gender in every society. Some societies are working towards deregulating the gender presentation, but it continues to be an area that people try to regulate. When there is a change, then people get very anxious. Even when people started becoming transgendered and working towards transsexual operations, for example, and surgeries, there was a tremendous amount of regulation within the very society that was supporting the change. So they would say things like you have to dress in the role that you wish to be and enact that for a whole year before you could start hormones. But when you think about it, anybody who would dress without taking hormones would put themselves at great risk because they would not be identified in the gender they wanted to be, even if they're trying to enact it. So in fact, it was a regulation that put people at further risk.
And I hate when people try to say that on the other side of the coin, me not letting them be bigoted is discriminatory on my part. Because I'm not trying to legislate what they can do with their life. I'm not trying to legislate who they can marry or what can happen to them. I'm not trying to legislate that they sign up to some registry. So I don't have to take that. Nobody has to take that. And it shouldn't be acceptable. Because what they're trying to do affects my bottom line and millions of other people. It's not just me. So it's not acceptable to say, well, it's not fair for you to say I can't say X, Y, Z. It's just not the way that a civilized society should function. And it's very disheartening that it's gone so far.
Touching on the constructive anger, I get shut down a lot by friends. Not so much my family, because I am very nervous to speak to my conservative Mexican family, conservative Catholic Mexican family, which is just as sexist and racist and harmful as we see some groups here. But with my friends, I get a lot of shutting down and dismissing attitudes from them, saying that your anger is destructive. You hating Nazis is just as harmful as the hate that Nazis put out. That the anger doesn't produce anything. Whereas I think that dissatisfaction and anger is what we all need to feel in order to push faster and harder than ever before.
I'm hopeful that all of this negativity, all of everything that has happened with this election will make the rest of the country, those people who didn't come out and vote and those people who just didn't think it was important enough to do, I'm hopeful that this will wake them up.
So anger can be used as fuel for us to fight for social justice.
But I have altered my lifestyle in that I am more out. I felt that by playing it safe, like I have, isn't something that will help the people around me who don't necessarily see the fear or the community in general. They don't have enough contact with the community to understand that we're just humans, just like everyone else. And so by being out, I can serve as an example to my community and for the people who maybe aren't so sure about us, maybe be a voice.
Voting for him, to me, was a revelation of a person's values. And certainly my close friends and family members understand that I'm gay. They understand the struggle that I've been through. So if they could vote for someone like that, I certainly, wanted to know about it. Because to me, it would have been a betrayal of the relationship they had with me, because ultimately that relationship at its center should be, I love you and will support you in your life.
When I think about the results of the election, it has not only threatened me, but it has shown up in every conversation I have had with a client since the election. It has showed up in every professional relationship that I've had with my supervisees, with the students that I train. It has shown up in every conversation that I've had with other superiors and supervisors that are in my current professional world. We are all very worried and very concerned, and it is hard to not think about it almost every moment of every day, because in the work that I do, it is always the elephant in the room.
I just try to keep the positive outlook. Because what else is there to do? Being grumpy about it's not going to help. It just isn't. It's just not the way that I live. So for now, I keep my chin up and I keep moving forward and I speak out for myself when I can.
I'm trying to mentally and emotionally and spiritually prepare myself for some type of uprising, some type of like chaos, but then be grounded enough myself to kind of try to navigate through that the best I can for my partner and for my family. So I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't want to try to guess at it. So I try to stay in the hopeful part of it versus the fearful part of it, because I think the fear helps it grow.
This passage is John 13:34. A new command I give you, you must love one another, for I have loved you, so you must love one another. And on this arm, I have a question: where is the love? With a butterfly for metamorphosis, and a starfish for being the change.
There are so many people who talk about the gay lifestyle, and that always makes me laugh because my lifestyle is I get up in the morning, I have breakfast, I take a shower, I go to work, I come home, I cook dinner with my husband, we watch some TV and go to bed. That's our lifestyle, and so I think it's important that people see gay people in their life. That's why it's so important for us to be out to our families, out at church, out at our jobs, so that people see that we are no different than anyone else. I think what happened with this election that has made gay people feel a little bit betrayed is that we thought that things in this country had changed for us. We have a beloved television figure like Ellen, who's watched by, millions of people every single day. We have, people like Laverne Cox on the cover of Time magazine. And we have marriage equality, and the people in our lives came to our weddings. We thought that we were experiencing acceptance for who we are. And so for us to learn that people in our churches and people at our jobs and people in our own families actually voted against us. They didn't vote in our best interests. They said that they had our back, but they actually stabbed us in the back. That's why this is different, because we thought that we had gotten to a place of acceptance. And now we're finding out that we aren't as accepted as maybe we thought we were.
you.